Hi everyone, this is Nikki Rowland and today I have a layout for Hip Kit Club to share. I'm playing along with the recipe challenge for this week and I'm using the really beautiful December kits. So the recipe challenge this week is fussy cutting, stitching, frames and at least 5 lines of journaling. I am decided to start off with some circles and then I changed my mind and didn't really use them. So I started off by cutting some circles from that beautiful paper that's called Northern Lights. It's a really beautiful ombre paper. It's so gorgeous. So I cut 3 circles from that using metal dies and particularly wanted to use these frames on that sheet of paper with all those cute little frames all over it. I think it's called Gallery or something like that. It has these cute frames all over it, and inside the frames are different things. So we have a cat, we have a hot chocolate or something yummy, socks, a snowflake, snow globe, a bobble hat, all those types of things, winter related items really. So I was trying to, I was thinking that because some of those are circular or at least oval, I would do something with the frames and the circles, but it just didn't look right. I think it's because the frames, a lot of them are oval or square even, with rounded corners admittedly, and the circles just didn't work with the frames. And I particularly wanted to use the frames because one of the items in this week's recipe challenge is to use frames, and I know there's other frames available, but I just really loved these, and I just thought that it would be really lovely to use these, the frames from that paper, and I fussy cut them all as well, which is also part of this week's challenge. This layout kind of had to develop as I went along because, as I say, I had an idea in mind that just didn't really work in practice. You can see the direction in which I'm going now. So I've decided to arrange them all in a cute, fun little wreath style design. So I've cut them all out. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in total that I've cut out. I'm just arranging them in a circle. Now I can't bear a wonky wreath, so I tried to get my wreath looking perfect, and there was a lot of moving those elements around, of course, to make it look good. And I've also got some fussy cut flowers in there. They're from the sheet of flowers. I'd actually fussy cut them for a previous layout and then not used all of them, so I had some fussy cut flowers left over, so that also ticks the box for the fussy cutting requirement of the challenge. I'm pretty happy with how it's looking, but I want to embellish those frames. So what I've decided to do is chain stitch around each one. Now, I love chain stitch. It's quite chunky and fun, and I particularly love chain stitch for winter layouts because it reminds me of those big stitching loops in knitted like jumpers or knitted hats and scarves, that kind of thing. So it really reminds me of like a cable knit style. So therefore, chain stitch for me really does belong in winter. I've used it in other times as well, but it definitely works really well for winter type layouts. And in my photo, me and my little boy are both wearing woolly hats, so the chain stitch was perfect, went really well with that. So I've spent some time off camera chain stitching all of those. So all 8 of them are stitched, and they have different colours on them depending on what the colours are on the icons. And in order to get my wreath perfect, I cut out a 7.5 inch circle on my silhouette just to draw around and use as a template. So you can see that I put it in the middle there, I drew around it, and then I rubbed it out. And that's the reason for that is so I didn't see the pencil line later. It's much easier to rub out a pencil line when it's on a flat surface. My plan was to stitch around the pencil line on my machine, which is what I've done there, and you can see the teal outline there, but it's much harder to rub out the pencil line once you've already stitched over it. So I tend to draw a pencil line and then rub it out, and then you can still see it faintly, but you can still see it. I can never get rid of a pencil line completely normally, so I've drawn it in, rubbed it out, I can still just about see it, and I followed that line around on my sewing machine, and I sewed around it 3 times with teal thread, and just a plain stitch, just a straight stitch, not a zigzag or anything. But I stitched it 3 times, so I've got a nice perfect circle for me to put all of my frames onto. And then I realised that you can barely see the stitching, which is a bit annoying. But it's okay, because 1, it acted as a guide for where to put it, and 2, you can see it in between all the frames, so it is nice that all of the frames are linked. What I would normally have done was arrange them in the circle shape, stuck them down, and then stitched through them so the stitching was on top of them. And I would have done that in white, not the teal. But I wasn't looking to go for that look this time. That's what initially I thought I would do, but this time, because I'd already got the chain stitching on the outside of the frames, I didn't want to then stitch through that with machine stitching. I was worried it would squash and not look that good, and it would detract from the fact that each of those are chain stitched. So I decided to have my stitching underneath the frames, with the frames sitting on top of the stitched wreath, the stitched circle. Okay, so I'm sticking all of my frames in place. I'm raising all of them up on foam pads. I'm embellishing around my photo. Underneath my photo, I did add one of those circles that I cut out earlier from the Northern Lights paper. I have also added excuse me, a chipboard frame to that circle as well. And then my photo is a square photo. I did consider cutting it into a circle, but I thought that might be too much. So I stuck to a square. I've added a chipboard frame behind the photo as well, a square one, so that I have a little border on the edge of my photo. But otherwise, I haven't mounted my photo on pattern paper or anything. So my layout is obviously on white background. I think it looks really lovely on the white. You can really see all the elements shine through. If I had it on pattern paper or a colour, the elements wouldn't have shown up quite so well. Like I said earlier, I've been fussy cutting some flowers from a previous layout, so I've just used those, tucked those under my photo, put one over on one on the top right corner, one of the frames on the top right corner. It had a kettle on, and we were outside, and I know there's a hot chocolate or something on one of the other ones, but the kettle really just didn't work for me, so I covered that one up with a flower, and that was ideal because I wanted to have an area of embellishment rather than just the flat frames on every single one. So that worked really well for me. I'm also now adding in some label stickers. I really love this month's label stickers. They're some in white, some in like almost a black, some in pink, and some in turquoise, so you've got a lot of variety there and loads of really fab phrases. So I've stuck one to almost all of the frames, not every single one, but almost. Share the love, having fun, happy, all bundled up, right now, captured, real life, always on the go, cherish. Yeah, that they're really, really cute. You can see I'm carrying on building up all of the layers I've got going on here. I've added some chipboard hearts in between the frames. I've added some acetate snowflakes at the bottom of my photo. I felt that my wreath looked a bit wonky because it obviously doesn't have the circles where my photo is. It then didn't quite look completely circular, so I felt the need to extend it slightly around the corner of the photo. So I've done that with some acetate snowflakes and some fussy cut flowers and some thread. Also a chipboard snowflake I've added in there as well. I'm now just I've added some thread top right as well. I'm just going round and adding in some paint splatters. So that is the really lovely Naughty or Nice Inklings by Shimmers that we got in the December kits. Just distressing the edges now. Oh, I just wanted to touch on my title. So I added winter, that's a chipboard sticker. I've raised that on foam pads. I've added walks underneath, that is with the silver alphas, and I've sewn through those on the sewing machine. And I also added the word disastrous. So my title reads Disastrous Winter Walks. That's above the word winter, the disastrous, in the really tiny red font. And I've stitched through that on my sewing machine as well. And the reason for that is because every time we take my 2-year-old out for a walk, it is always a complete disaster. We always think it's going to be a good idea. He loves going out, but every time we go, he wants to like run in the road, he wants to run in the opposite direction. If he doesn't want to go where we want, he wants to walk in the middle of the road. So every time we make him come onto the pavement, he'll then just sit down. So then we can't go anywhere. So it's always a disaster every time. So anyway, a bit of real life there. I've just added my layout onto a little bit of pattern paper so you can see a small amount of paper around the border. Okay, and that's me done. So thank you very, very much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed this layout. Don't forget that if you are a Hip Kit Club subscriber, you get the main kit at a reduced price, a 15% discount off all add-on kits, and you get access to exclusive subscriber cut files. So that's lots and lots of reasons to subscribe. Thank you so much for joining me today, and take part in the challenge over on the Facebook group. That was Nikki Rowland for Hip Kit Club.